I meet a lot of people that nearly were something. And this is what happens with too many entrepreneurs is they think like, oh, what I want to do is start a coaching business. I'm going to start a social media management business. I'm going to start a whatever business, right? And all they do is they keep it a hobby because all the time it's a hobby, their potential lays out in front of them. And providing I've got potential tomorrow, I didn't fail. All the time that you're in practice mode, your potential still exists in its entirety. The minute you move from practice to reality mode, your potential is now compromised because your potential is now being tested.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to Life Leader Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On the Life Leader Show, we help people make more, work less, and live awesome, amazing lives. I am joined by Polish Peter as my co-host. What's up, brother?
Not much, brother. So listen, one of the things that I'm really excited about this particular episode, and we're going to get right into it. No jokes right now, because we're getting into business, get down to business, right?
Whoa. Yeah,
I know.
all right,
Can
let's
you
do it,
believe
man.
it?
I'm on board, brother. I'm ready. Let's go. What is this? What do we got?
Some people might be a little bit upset about that. There's no jokes. But anyway, so listen, I was part of the executive coaching in the last few months. And during that particular training, this author came on and I'm listening to him and, he's sharing some of his wisdom with us. And I'm like, dude, we got to get this guy on this podcast.
Yeah.
So the gentleman that I'm talking about, his name is Phil M. Jones. Some of you may have recognized this author because his book called Exactly What to Say, The Magic Words for Influence and Impact, has at this particular moment, we're just showing around the camera right now.
Yeah, if you're watching YouTube right now, I got a copy. Man, dude, and I had a copy of this before this episode. It's a good little handbook here.
I know. Can you believe it? And I've read his book. I've listened to his book. He sold over 1 million copies, close to 2 million now, I think, at this particular point.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Has been translated into 30-some languages. Mm-hmm. And he's got crazy reviews. And one of the things that would spark for me is the words, how important they are in this conversation. So what are we talking about in this episode, Wojo?
Dude, I love this. Is an awesome episode. I cannot wait for you guys to hear this. I'll keep the intro short and brief. So we're going to talk about exactly how impactful the specific words you use, how they make an incredible difference, not just a marginal difference, an incredible difference in your success, but also we talk about failure. We talk about why some people get stuck in the learning curve and they never launch, right? They have this failure to launch. We talk about some of the limiting beliefs that hold people back. We talk about so many things related to leadership, persuasion, making sure that you're doing things from a perspective of efficiency, effectiveness, making sure that you are leading yourself as well, and just how to make a general impact in every area of your life that you have to communicate, which by the way is all of them, just in case you didn't know. It's an awesome episode, man. You ready to run in?
Yeah, so grab a notebook because listen to the load of wisdom that he shares with there. Grab a notebook and start listening.
Here is our interview with Phil M. Jones. Well, man, welcome to the Life Leader Show.
Hey, great to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
So, Peter,
Phil, one of the things that I wanted to really ask you is because we were in the executive coaching that I was part of, and you started speaking about credibility and presence, and some of the things that you said on this particular training, I was like, blew my mind, and I'm like, what? We got to get this guy on the podcast. So you wrote a powerful book called Exactly What to Say. I mean, how brilliantly of a title that is. Yes. So as we get started, I wanted to ask you, give us a little bit of the backstory because you started when you were 14 in business.
That's right.
And then how did that book come about out of
that? I mean, I started in business at 14 years of age because I wanted to purchase a pair of trainers that my dad didn't want to buy for me. So I started knocking on the doors of my neighbors, asking them politely whether they wanted to have their cars washed. A few said yes. Most said, just how much would I charge? Which I very quickly realized meant they were remarkably interested. And by the age of 15, I wasn't going to school as often as I should. And I was making more money than the bulk of my school teachers. So I continued building businesses part-time around my studies. Took me to the age of 18. And we've been building businesses and running sales teams ever since, really, and helping people just in one of three areas. One is acquire more customers. Two is to get them to come back more often. And three is to get them to spend more money when they shop.
I'd say all three of those are kind of important, huh?
They're kind of essential if you want to grow a business. And I think a lot of people miss those fundamentals, right? It is if you haven't got people who are prepared to pay the money you're asking, if you can't get them to come back and buy from you again and again and again, and if you can't find ways to be able to grow the basket size, well, you're going to have a rough ride in building a business.
So talk to me a little bit about as you developed these three different niches, or I guess you could. I'm thinking of like a trident, right? You have these three different pieces of the pyramid. Tell me how this evolved for you. Like, was one of those weakest in your business, and then you solved it, and then you noticed another one, or how did you kind of come across this, and how does that tie into the book?
I mean, I've written 11 books, so we're talking here about exactly what to say. I've been in leadership and growing organizations since as far back as I can remember. And because I've been in a young leadership position, so I was a senior sales manager for one of the largest department store groups in the UK at the age of 18, running teams of 100 plus people, running people that were largely double my age, if not more so. You don't instantly garner respect in those environments. They're like, who's this little kid? I was 18, 19 years of age, looked more like I was 15 years of age at the time. And what I learned was that I could get a lot more respect in those scenarios by never telling somebody what to do, but more so being like, hey, I've been watching what Jason's up to, and I know that Jason's getting great results in this area, and this area is important to you, and 3 of the things that Jason does differently to what you do are blank, blank, and blank. So my leadership style very much became through observation of others who were models of excellence, trying to distill that and then transplanting that into other people. And that was really a brilliant accident, is that taught me to study human behavior. That taught me to look towards models of excellence in all areas of life. It stopped me from saying, wow, anytime I met anybody who was awesome at anything. And instead I'd ask the question, how? How do you do what you do? How does that show up towards other people? How do I distill or reverse engineer that so I can train other people? And I very, very quickly in my world learned I got a lot more personal satisfaction through helping other people achieve their goals than I ever did in chase mine. Like, my goals have always been helping other people achieve theirs. So that's shown up all through my corporate world, all through my coaching business. I started a sales training business back in 2008 that was people saying to me, hey, Phil, will it cover blank? And I'm like, yeah, write that down. Will it cover blank? Yeah, write that down. And my first one-day sales training workshop was me answering the dozens and dozens of will it cover blank questions for the first 15 people in the room. So all I've been in my entire professional career is in service of other people's goals. How do I use my intellect, my skill set, and my observations to be able to help other people overcome the hurdles that exist in their life? And I've learned that I'm pretty good at making complex things simple, because I think I understand both sides of the argument, and being able to translate that in sales conversations and in influence conversations and in moments that matter is what I've learned to be the greatest skill set that is lacking in most modern professionals. There are lots of people who are really good at what they do, and they have strong hard work ethic, and they have great product knowledge, and they're kind, and they're compassionate, and they're decent humans. But if in the moments that matter, they don't know exactly what to say, when to say, and how to make it count, they keep coming second. And in the world of business, second place doesn't pay very well. So I've just become pedantic about word choices, pedantic about how you can use words to influence and persuade, and pedantic about then empowering other people to find tracks to run on in this area that helps drive their success.
That's fascinating, man. I'm curious, it sounds like this was almost like a trial and error. Like you maybe stumbled across this early on, and you reckon like, wow, this is generating results. This is actually having an effect. And it seems like this is one of those things where, like, you struck that vein of gold, and you continued along it, and then it expanded. Is that accurate?
I think if we were making a 90-minute Hollywood movie, that would be accurate. In terms of the reality of life, what we're talking about here is nearly a 28-year career at this point in time. And is anybody who grows at anything has done so through significant amounts of trial and error. I don't know anybody that just like, hey, victory, 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 this is easy. It's always been bravery to try something new, learning something fast, retaking what you've learned and applying it to next time. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. There's no way around it in terms of my world. What I find interesting, though, is like I was speaking at a seminar just last week. There's 6,500 people in the audience. And one of the most common questions that comes back to me was, oh, do you have a background in psychology? Like, did you study psychology at school? And I find it fascinating that people think that you needed to go on a 4-year course somewhere to be told that you understand something. I've been studying psychology and human behavior since I was 14 years of age, maybe even unconsciously prior to that. I've since checked all of my road-tested skill sets back through psychological principles. So most people, like, they go to school to learn the foundations to then try and apply it in the real world. I've learned how to do it in the real world and then reverse engineered it back through understanding the scientific principles that are taught about and written about and studied upon to be able to add more credibility and weight to my argument. But I don't think this is something you learn. I think it's something you live, which is back to your point again about trial and error, trial and error, trial and error, is people are so fearful of failure, but the only way we've got to be good at anything in our life is to fail fast, fail often, get up again and go again. Right? That is all that's ever happened. So some of the wisest people on the planet, some of the most learned people on the planet have failed more than other people have tried. And I know it's cliche and a little bit twee, but I don't think it's talked about so often. I think people are looking for, like, hey, what's the fast track? What's the easy route? It's not easy. You need a lot of reps. And I run 2-day certification programs now around exactly what to say. In fact, I'm running one here from my offices here in Manhattan tomorrow and the day after that. And people are like, how do we get to be able to think as quick as you do? I'm like, well, they say it takes 10,000 hours in order to be able to become an expert. What if I told you that I was at somewhere like 1,000,000+ hours of being toe-to-toe in complex negotiations where the outcome really matters? Like, is you have to do the reps. Why? Because you have to be ready when something goes wrong. And in the professional speaking space, the big mistake that people have is it isn't about delivering your speech, it's about being able to serve the moment. The moment is always changing. And that's what requires emotional intelligence. That's what requires experience. That's what requires, okay, fire alarm goes off. Geez, there is somebody having a medical emergency in the room. Geez, you need to be able to cut your 90 minutes to 42 minutes, 7 minutes before you walk on stage. Geez, the AV goes out. Geez, you can't use slides. Geez, the speaker before you uses your material ahead of time. And geez, right? You've got to be ready to be able to say, that's no worries, that's no worries, that's no worries. Because being an entrepreneur in today's world means that you're a leader, and a leader is a position of service. And what you're not there just to serve is your message. You're there to serve the moment and to serve the objectives of the people that have hired you to deliver, regardless of how you get there. That requires experience. That means you fail often. That means that when something does go wrong, you're like, I've been somewhere like this before. So I know I went off on a little bit of a tangent there as well, but I think this is half of a message that aspiring entrepreneurs need to understand, is that there is no perfect way. Don't wait to get ready. Just look for moments that you are certain you can add value to. Go add that value and then start to build a reputation of being somebody who adds value every time they show up, and you'll build a career.
I love that, man. And I appreciate you sharing this, because I think a lot of people get stuck in that kind of a mode, right? But you have to do what you're saying here. So
we see the coaching, training, sort of personal brand space that I meet what I call experts in getting ready. You know, what they are is they're reading another book, they're going on another course, they're getting another certification, they're getting another badge of honor, they are doing the next thing to make them ready to be able to cross the start line, but they never cross the start line. Yeah. And I think that more and more people could just benefit from being scrappy first, and it has to be messy before it's beautiful. So go write a first draft, go jump in and give it your best shot tomorrow, and then see what you learn and get ready to go again and again and again. That's where expertise comes from. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, I'm writing my first book right now, so I'm in my first draft. So at this particular point, I think I'm like, if I read this, I'm good. Right? Especially with that accent, it's a whole another kabubo, and Bojo can probably attest to this.
Well, and I think when you do things like write books is be brave enough to give yourself multiple levels of success. Like, one version of success could be the pure documentation of getting some of your ideas down on paper and packaging them into something that is between some pieces of cardboard and existing with your name on it, and you selling a copy to your mother plus one other, right? Like, that could be winning. And I think it's okay that might be winning. And we hold ourselves back because we believe if we're going to do this, it needs to be Wall Street Journal. It needs to be something that hits a bestseller list, etc. We set a bar that's here, and anything below that is failure, when that ain't true.
Right.
So everybody should, in all areas of life, set a minimum of 3 levels of success. One is like, what's the worst case scenario? So if this is a book, like I did it, I got it in paper, I got it between the covers, I sold one to my mother and one to another. So therefore I'm winning. Like, what did I really want to do with it? Well, I wanted it to position me as an expert. So what I could do is I could elevate my fees. And what I could do was to be able to use it as an industrial strength business card. So I'd have more credibility when I'm getting through the doors of others. Oh, what else could it do? Geez, I mean, it could go gangbuster online. And before I know it, I could wake up to a trail royalty income that means I never need to work a day again. But if you give yourself like a spectrum of successes, as opposed to just one version of success, the play space becomes more fun. And I use your book example in that, but the same is true for anybody looking to start a business. What is worst case scenario? What am I really looking to try and do? And if today was my birthday, what could I achieve if we just blew the roof off the thing? And set standards of winning in all those areas. And then what happens is you kid yourself into winning more than you lose, which then means that you grow confidence, which then means that you keep playing to go the distance.
What do you mean by kid yourself into winning more?
One of the most important qualities to have in any entrepreneurial business is self-confidence.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot convince if you're not convinced. We then have another riddle that success breeds success. Plus, you have to fail more than you succeed in order to win. So I have a paradox here, right? Success breeds success. Confidence is one of the most important attributes, but you're going to lose more than you win in order to win. These things fight each other. They fight real hard. They fight inside. They fight up here. They fight right in your front periphery vision, and they slow you down. If what you can do is to build measures of success that allow you to win more often by setting bars that are lower, now all of a sudden you feel like a proven success story. Oh, dang, I achieved this, I achieved this, I achieved this today. And what you're trying to do for yourself is to protect your self-confidence by saying that most days I win. Some days I win this big, some days I win this big, but most days I win. And when you play from a belief system that most days I win, then your self-confidence remains intact. Actually, it ends up being quite humbling because you don't have the peaks and valleys that many people have. You just like, you know, most days I win. Some days I win this big, some days I win this big. And that means that I can show up every day believing that I'm going to win, given the moment that's in front of me at that moment in time. And I find that helps maintain a level of self-confidence that allows you to run a career in this world, not just have a magic moment. And I think too many people are getting head up on like, what's that perfect moment? We need to have pretty darn good moments every single day, not 5 amazing moments every 365. That's exhausting.
Let me rewind a second, like, because you said something I think that I want to unpack for people that I see a lot of, and it's this. I don't want to say it's pretending to be a business owner, but you're doing all the things that really don't matter. It's the education, and let me back up. Education matters. However, at some point the rubber has to hit the road, and people have to do things that actually lead to a tangible result. What do you think holds people back from actually making that transition from education, learning, thinking about business to actually implementing, to actually getting out there? Is it the risk? Is it the fear of failure? Is it what is holding people back there? Is it a mindset issue? Like they haven't set themselves up with enough ways to win?
I think it's a combination of all those things. It is prevalent everywhere. Yeah. One of the biggest reasons that the online training personal brand space is one of the biggest industries on the planet right now is because it's full of these experts that are getting ready. You know, people who are spending money to learn on courses to learn how to create courses, right?
Right.
You know, this is prevalent everywhere. Why does it exist? I think there's a few things. All the time something remains possible, you've not failed. So I meet a lot of people that nearly were something. I travel a lot. I spend myself in a lot of airplanes. I find myself sat at a lot of bars, restaurants, etc. by myself. Find myself speaking to a stranger who tells me that they nearly were something. The point was they had a good idea. They had a lot of the backstory and the credibility to be able to lean into being able to do that, but they never got in the arena. So they didn't nearly become something. They didn't even try. They just had a cute idea. And this is what happens with too many entrepreneurs is they think like, oh, what I want to do is start a coaching business. What I want to do is, I want to start an online design business. I'm going to start a social media management business. I'm going to start a whatever business, right? And all they do is they keep it a hobby, because all the time it's a hobby, their potential lays out in front of them. And providing I've got potential tomorrow, I didn't fail. So what they do is they work a body of clients for free who tell them that they are great and that they blow smoke up their backside and like, you are awesome. Thanks for all your help. But what happens is you don't actually get real experience, because if you're in the helping business and you're helping people for free, there's no value attached towards that service. And what you're going to get is false compliments. So I think why do people do it is because they don't want to remove their potential from themselves. And all the time that you're in practice mode, your potential still exists in its entirety. The minute you move from practice to reality mode, your potential is now compromised because your potential is now being tested. Now that you're in the arena, the marketplace decides whether you're going to succeed at this, not you, the marketplace. You get to decide how you show up in the marketplace, but the marketplace decides whether you win. And that is a field of play that too few people are prepared to be able to make themselves vulnerable for. That's why so many athletes train to get to Olympic standard and then don't go to tournament. Same difference in the world of work is if I can be in the background training, then you know what? I could have won gold. I could have represented my country. I could have a medal hanging here, sweetie pie. But you know what? I decided to do this instead. Therefore, my potential is intact because I never entered the arena, didn't play in the marketplace. That's why I think that happens, Jason.
Dude, I love that answer. And so, someone once explained it to me. I asked them a similar question. It was actually one of my mentors. I said, how did you get past that? And he said, for me, the fear of staying where I am now for another 5 or 10 years was scarier than stepping out into that potential failure zone of taking it. Is that what you also see?
I don't know whether I see it as cliche as that. I'm really good at looking at saying, what's the worst that could happen? And I can stare that monster in the face. And more often than not, when I stare that monster in the face, it isn't half as bad as I thought it might be. And that is really liberating. Like, put it this way, I launch a new webinar program that's going to lead to a new masterclass. And like the worst that happens is freaking nobody shows up. Well, guess what? If nobody shows up, then nobody knew that it didn't happen. Right?
Right. Yeah, it's not so bad.
That's true.
If 3 people show up expecting to be part of a 500-person webinar, then guess what? Those 3 people are going to get an intimate mastermind environment class experience for the fee of a ticket. I mean, imagine buying tickets to a concert where you expected it to be 10,000 people at an Ed Sheeran show, and you turn up and it's 7 of you. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's probably like, this is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So when you start to look at what's the worst that could happen, you start to go, well, I could deal with that. But what happens is people often aren't brave enough to look with honesty and truth at what's the worst that could happen. They believe that the worst that could happen is significantly worse than the worst. So that's the bag they're carrying. And they're carrying this monstrous, mystical beast of a problem that could never exist. That's why they don't play. You probably heard me use this word a lot today, and you probably missed how often I've used it. It's the word play. This is a game. Business is a game. It's a game we play to win. And seeing it as a game and a game that you plan to win, to me, lowers the stakes and heightens the possibility. Because when it comes to winning the game, there's dozens of different ways that you can win. Like Simon Sinek says, it is an infinite game. It's a game that's never done, which means that wherever I am in the game, I can get up again tomorrow and I can play again and I can play again and I can play again. But if you're seeing it as a game, you've got a choice to play or not play. And not playing a game on Thanksgiving when the rest of your family are playing a game is a sad and lonely place. So what do I look to better do is to get up and play every day. Get up and play every day. And I find that remarkably liberating in my world. So it's not about the fear of failure, etc. It's the fact that, like, what else am I going to do with my time? We are human beings on Earth. We've been given a winning lottery ticket in terms of like how we show up. Like it or dislike it, 2023, when we consider it through all of the years of history, we got choices that most of our ancestors didn't have. No matter how far we go back, is despite all the difficulties in the world that exist at this moment in time, they're probably, if you were to have an impartial viewpoint attached to this, there's never been a better time to be alive. So tell me why you wouldn't play. The only reason to not play is if you're selfish. The world needs you to play. The world gets better when everybody plays. Gets even better when everybody plays full on.
I love that.
That's true. Yeah, I love that, man. That's a great perspective because of the fact that when you look at business or even life as game, the entire game basically changes for you, shifts.
Correct. So, the rules are changing all the time. The players are changing all the time. The field of play is changing all the time, but it never stops being a game.
Hey, so let me interrupt this episode. And before we get back into it, here's what I want to share with you guys. One of the things that we do throughout the year, all over the country, is we do this event called Business Builder Event. This is the event where we literally outline, help you figure out and create a business that you love and a business that support your life. One of the things that we found over the years that many people become basically a slave or work an employee to their business, and they're working so much in their business that they don't actually get to live their life. And in this particular workshop, we help you redesign that, a business that supports your life. So what do you want to have for them, Bojo? What do we have for them because of that?
Yeah, well, Peter, because they are loyal listeners, and I know they're tuned in every week, and they've told everyone in their life about the Life in Air Show podcast, we have a very, very special offer for you. Now, by the way, I don't know how long we're going to offer this, so this isn't forever. But if you go to lifeinair.com right now and you go to the events tab and then you go to the Business Builder Workshop, you can, when you pick the event you want, when you go to that checkout page, there's a little place right there. It says enter promo code. And guess what? We have a promo code for you for 50. That's 50% off the ticket for the Business Builder Workshop by entering the promo code podcast into the promo code field. Instantly, you'll get a 50% savings. You'll see it right there on the screen, and you will be registered for that event. And here's the cool thing. You will be off to the races to create a life and a business that complement each other for the first time, maybe ever. And it's amazing.
One more thing I want to share with you before we jump back into the episode is this. One of the participants at our recent podcast, he was in a hot seat. We do these hot seats in front of the room, and we kind of dissect their business. And one suggestion that he got them, he made the change, went home, made the change, and pretty much within a few months went into stage 4, meaning into his business, that the business basically supported his life. The income that was coming, the cash flow that was coming into his business, by making that one change, started living in a way that he doesn't have to work for the business works for him. So yes. I would encourage you guys, head over to the website, learn about this event, type in podcast, and we'll see you on the next event. Now, let's get back into the episode. So listen, one of the things that I don't want to overlook is we brought you here because you have the brilliant book that you wrote, Exactly What to Say. When you look at the title, sometimes you're like, oh, exactly what to say. So, man, and what if I don't know what to say? Like, how do I say it exactly what to say, right? So talk to us a little bit about that, the words and exactly what to say.
Exactly what to say is a giant part of my life's work. Is if on my tombstone it reads, proud father, loving husband, and creator of Exactly What to Say, I'm good with that, right? I'm good with that as a legacy outcome. Exactly What to Say is a tiny, massive little book that is full of 23 sequences of words that talk straight towards the subconscious brain that help people understand how to influence and persuade in the moments that matter more in life. What's interesting is it's a book you can read cover to cover in 72 minutes. If you miss the nuance in the book, then what you might think is it's a simple, easy little book. It isn't. It's a book deep-rooted in giant psychological principles of influence, that if I wrote the book that explained all of those principles, you'd still be reading it now, and you'd struggle to find examples. Ironically, though, is if I deliver a book that has 23 examples of word choices in it, I trim out all of the fat, then you understand the principle without me teaching you the principle.
Mm.
And the book has done remarkably well. At this moment in time, we've sold 1.75 million copies. We're translated into 29 different languages. It's the most listened to nonfiction audiobook on Audible of all time. And it helps people understand how to influence other people from a position of integrity and empowers them to learn word choices that allow people to make decisions more freely. See, people think that no is the enemy of yes when it comes to influence. It isn't. Maybe is the enemy. Indecision is the enemy. So if you can talk to the part of somebody's brain that is fundamentally more decisive, then what you can do is you can increase the rate of action. If you can increase the rate of action, you can increase the rate of transaction. You can make more happen. You can get paid more money. You can achieve things more freely. So the book is littered with examples of empowering language that encourage you to be able to show up to moments with a little more intentionality, with more consideration about what you might want to get from that moment. We live in a world where too many people count their conversations and too few people make those conversations count. We live in a world where people are looking to hide from conversing with other human beings, yet we know that the greatest skill and tool for empowering or influencing others to change their behaviors is being in a moment between two humans where you're asking them questions that they haven't been prepared to ask themselves to help them see the world in a different way. Like, that's how stuff happens. So there has never in my mind been a more important time that if somebody wants to lead a change in their life, for them to be able to learn how to show up to moments and have a greater skill set at their disposal when it comes to word choices. We've taken this work deeper and deeper and deeper. I deliver around 150 keynote speeches a year around exactly what to say. We have a certification program that we take people through a through-dated program, helping them understand exactly what to say. And we build it out on 4 cornerstones of conversational excellence. I'll share the 4 cornerstones in today's discussion because I think here's where you'll see the kind of work that sits behind the work. Mm-hmm. The first is this, is that the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment when you're saying it. Like, how many times do you step away from a conversation and think shoulda, woulda, coulda? Yeah. How many times do you step away from a conversation and think, who on earth was that idiot? The person you were talking about is yourself.
I was talking about Vojo.
Possibly true, but what happens is we find ourselves debriefing conversations that if we were just better at pre-briefing conversations, would make more happen in those moments. So the first cornerstone is to remember that the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment you're saying it. Second is to be reminded that curiosity is the fuel to great conversation. I use the word fuel there intentionally. Like, if you put the wrong fuel into an engine, the engine breaks down, the engine blows up, the engine doesn't work. Same is true in conversation. You put the wrong fuel into it, it gets clunky, it gets confusing, you lose momentum, you don't find moments of clarity. The utopian fuel to amplify conversation is to heighten the level of sincere, genuine curiosity. You cannot be wrong when you're curious. When you're curious, you understand people's context. Too often, people want to insert content into a conversation. If you insert content before you learn context, what you did is you made a noisy moment noisier, made it harder for somebody to be able to see the truth. So great conversation is fueled with curiosity. When you look at many of the examples and exactly what to say, you'll see that they are prefaces to allow you to ask more curious questions, to allow you to garner more context in somebody else's scenario before you start inserting your content. Because third cornerstone is that people do things for their reasons and not yours. Quite simply, if you're looking to influence anybody to do anything, you should never, ever, 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 ever invite somebody to do something unless you can say these words first. And the words you should look to say first are the words because of the fact that you said. Because of the fact that you said blank, blank, and blank, then for those reasons, what I'd recommend is blank, blank, and blank. That is leadership. That is giving advice. Too many people don't give advice. What they're doing is they're giving opinions disguised as advice. How do you deliver a framework like, because of the fact that you said blank, blank, and blank, for those reasons, what I'd recommend is blank, blank, and blank, because that framework sounds easy. It's easy in theory. It's challenging in practice. Why? Because it's challenging to collect the blanks. How do you collect the blanks more freely? You're strategically curious to collect the evidence that you want to bring towards your argument. So we go back a step, remembering that curiosity is the fuel to great conversation. We go back a step, remembering that the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment you're saying it. If you show up to moments with more intentionality, then what you'll do is you'll be more prepared for that moment, which means you'll get more from the moment. When you show up to that moment, if you use strategic curiosity to collect the evidence that you need to be true for your truth to be true, then guess what? You bring more weight to your argument. And if you only ever introduce your point of view, utilizing the framework because of the fact that you said blank, blank, and blank, then for those reasons, I'd recommend blank, blank, and blank, you are insanely more influential, which reminds you of the cornerstone of conversational excellence, which is the person who's asking the questions that's in control of the conversation. Yet all too often, people find themselves giving answers, wishing to be perceived as the expert. Experts don't give answers, experts ask questions. Because questions start conversations, conversations lead to relationships, relationships create opportunities, and from those opportunities, you can drive new action. But people forget that it all starts with questions. So listeners, right now, here's your to-do list from me today. Who are the people you need to be asking more questions of? What are the conversations you know you need to be having that you're not having right now? Where do you hold relationships that hold untapped opportunities? And where have you created opportunities that require you to be the pattern interrupt in that situation to catalyze the next action? You answer those 4 questions, you're going to write yourself a pretty meaningful to-do list. Get to work on that to-do list. And guess what? You'll create change in your world. When you finish that to-do list, here's your next to-do list. Who are the people you need to be asking more questions of? What are the conversations you know you need to be having that you're not? Where do you have relationships that hold untapped opportunities? Where have you created opportunities that require you to catalyze the next action? Write that to-do list. Go do that to-do list. When you finish that to-do list, here's your to-do list. Who are the people you need to be asking more questions of? What are the conversations that you need to be having that you're not? Where do you have relationships that hold untapped opportunities? Where are there opportunities you've created that require you to catalyze the next action? Guess what you do when you finish that to-do list? Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. You'll build yourself an incredible life if you follow those 4 questions on repeat.
Doesn't get any more simpler than this.
Easy to do, easy not to do, really simple in theory, perhaps more challenging in practice. You're going to write that list, and then you're going to ask yourself, well, like, how do I open a conversation with that person? How do I show up with more intentionality to that? Oh, dang, yes, there is that relationship over there that I need to do more with. But how, but how, but how? See, people say it's not what you do, what you know, but who you know. That's partially true. What you do with who you know is important. This is why the skill set in answering all those 4 questions and then building the action plan that follows is the difference between those that do good and those that crush it. Is the ones that crush it know exactly what to say, when to say it, and how to make it count. They know how finding the right words at the right time can give them the confidence to catalyze those conversations to achieve more. That is a skill set. It's a skill set that you learn. It's a skill set that you practice. It's a skill set you get experienced at. And you don't get experienced on a skill set like that without getting into the arena, without messing it up a few times, and without being brave enough to debrief so that you can better pre-brief for next time. Play again, play again, play again.
Yeah. And so, Phil, the way I handle your book, by the way, is like, so I'm a big highlighter, like, right. So I'll highlight things that are important to me. And then what I'm trying to do is like, I realize like, okay, there's no way I'm going to implement all these things right off the bat. I'm going to shoot for 1 or 2 of these and try to use it for a day or a week and just try to find those opportunities to put it in there. And what I've realized is over time is there's some degree of fluency that you'll attain through repetition, through doing it over and over and over again.
Like learning a new language.
Yeah, and exactly. And what I like about the book, man, and it's all, to me, it almost feels like a cheat sheet of something that's very easily referenceable that you can go to, that you can just, I mean, it does, like you said, it's not 500 pages, but it's very concise, very applicable. You give examples, you give sentences, illustrations, things like that. And I really enjoyed it a bit. And I kind of think of it as, it's almost, there's a few patterns that I've observed in it, like, and I know we can talk about these or not, but like, for instance, like a few of the phrases, for instance, to me felt like for instance, the phrase, like, just imagine, like that's one of the ones you use in the book. And there's another one where, I mean, that you're kind of creating an appealing future for somebody and getting them to envision that and see that. That's so maybe people might call that future pacing. And then there's a few that I felt like you really did a really good job with. like you said, well, even the word like just imagine, it's something small that appeals to someone's sense of and so there's these incredible, and what you've done magically is link them together. Like some of these phrases are linkages of several different concepts into one that I thought was just brilliant. And I'm by the way, I'm not an expert. I'm sure I'm missing most of your ninja behind this. But it kind of like, I could see the practical applications of these and how they greased the conversation in a way that allowed for, it reduced friction in a way that, it really, I mean, it's very, very smooth. It was fascinating.
What it's looking to do is to empower confidence, remove rejection, reduce friction, and allow you to stay in the game more effectively. It's kind of fun. And this is very much front of mind to me right now, is because we're running a program here tomorrow. So this is how we evolve it in the certification program. So we go from the little book to the big book, the 32 sequences of words in here, and the words are categorized into sort of buckets that then flow on a typical kind of arc of a conversation. So we start with rejection-free openings. We move to perspective changes that allow people to see things from a different point of view. We then look at assumptive frames that allow you to be able to accelerate the speed of decision. We move from assumptive frames to a technique called labeling that allows you to be able to create a feeling in a moment at an accelerated pace by inserting a label. We then look at things that you can do to stay in the game, which are tools that you can use that if you feel like you're losing it, if you feel like the opportunity is running away from you, how do you pull it back? And then we look at tools that you can utilize to get more from conversation. And what happens is when we put them in order like that, and then we give examples towards leadership and life and sales and parenting and how you show up with your spouse and like all of that, it's like, oh dang, this is next level stuff. You're right in what you're saying with the first book. The best way to learn it is to use it. 2 ways to use it: take a sequence of words and then go use it obnoxiously. 1 sequence of words, do it for a day, like when you're at the grocery store, when you're like speaking to the insurance company on the telephone, when you're chatting with the kids about whether they're going to tidy their room or not, like take it everywhere, blow it up. And just like a piece of elastic, when you stretch it out to a certain point, it never goes back to the same again. That's how you achieve success here. A mistake that many people make, though, when they're trying a set of words on that's uncomfortable to them, they're like, I could never use that. That sounds like it's pushy or manipulative, or it sounds aggressive. The miss that doesn't get translated in the written form of the book is how you hear the words. So when somebody hears a sequence of words like, what do you understand? Or what do you know? It's like, that's guns up, let's go to war. Because I could say to somebody like, what do you know about like business and life and the universe? And that starts a fight. But if we remember that curiosity is the fuel of great conversation, look how a little change in tonality changes everything. If you were to say, well, like seriously, Pops, like, what do you know about like business and life and the universe that maybe I don't know right now? Same phrase. One fueled with curiosity that leaves space to the fact that I might not know, and one that sounds condescending. So I cannot stop how somebody reads the words, but I can tell you the intentionality behind how you read every sequence of words in the books is to make sure that you are looking to influence a moment, utilizing curiosity as your friend, and showing up to every single moment you're looking to influence with a belief that you might not be right. And that is one of the greatest gifts you can give to yourself if you're looking to be able to change the opinion or perception of somebody else, is to go into that conversation believing you might not be right. And I think if you can go into a conversation 98%, 94%, 92% sure, you are far more likely to be able to get somebody to appreciate your point of view and change theirs than you showing up to a situation 100% certain.
Yeah, I think a lot. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think the struggle for a lot of people is not going in conversation with the thinking that I'm right. You know,
correct.
But I think that's the big struggle.
I think I'm right. I'm pretty sure I'm right. Based on my experience up until right now, then this is what I believe, and I believe it with high levels of certainty. But showing up to a conversation with complete certainty is dangerous.
Yep, I love that. That's a great answer. So listen, we're getting towards the end of the podcast, Phil. I mean, I love what you're sharing with us. I have a curious question for you, because one of the things I went to your website and looked at some of those things, and I've noticed that you wrote the book specifically for kids.
That's right.
Tell me more about that.
Oh man, so fun. I believe that the mindset and thought process of the future leaders of our country is an important area to give intentionality to. We live in a world that is hyper opinionated, hyper diverse in terms of its thought, and very happy to allow things to become argument and debate that could actually be appeased by realizing that, through my experience, most people agree with more things than they actually disagree with. Like, when pushed, is yeah, what we believe is that we all think like absolute opposites in every area. But when you get into it, the majority of people are pretty good people and actually would like to live in a pretty nice world and agree on more fundamentals than most. During the pandemic, I decided to start a passion project, which was to create a little book that would talk towards the minds of our young people, that would help them become more intentional around their word choices. I wrote a little book called The Magic of Words. I then worked with a fabulous illustrator that, without a doubt, did more of the work than I did. In fact, I mean, look at this little thing. It's gorgeous. And, beautiful illustrations and a nice little rhyming story. But the intentions behind it was to help children be aware of just how much impact and influence they can have on other kids they interact with just by what leaves their mouth. And whether that is name calling, whether that is being courteous with manners, but more often than not, it's just raising their awareness towards, can they be more intentional with their word choices? And can they be aware of the facts that names do hurt, that words can build people up, words can break people down, words can leave scars, words can empower moments and be never forgotten. And what's interesting now is, I won with this book the day that I put my hands on the first copy and sat at bedtime reading it to my little girls. But now some bonus wins that have come is school teachers are using this book in classrooms to provide education around explaining why what happened yesterday on the playground with Jimmy and Alexander was wrong, and using it to be able to craft lessons around just by taking a piece of prose from the book and helping facilitate a discussion around what was intended by that passage. So I'm very lucky that lots of what I've achieved in business allows me to do some of the things I just want to do because I want to do. A fully illustrated hardcover kids book is a terrible business idea, but I'm darn sure I'm happy with it. Like, they're just too expensive to produce and too expensive to logistically work around, and there's no margin there. But dang, I love having it, and I love speaking at events and then finding out that CEOs got 5-year-old grandkids, and just a little thank you gift for them trusting me with their audience is to be like, hey, like this is for Sally for you to read through over the weekend. Hope you don't mind me just presenting this to you as a gift. So it's become a fun giftable within my corporate world as opposed to a commercial attribute, but I love having it. And I think it just leans more on my mission to elevate people's consciousness around word choices. Like, from young people, we're now launching another product called Exactly What's a Role Play, which is a card deck to allow people to be able to find more familiarity with the word choices. We're doing the certification program where individuals can level up their consciousness and awareness about how to use the word choices in real time. I run those personally here in New York, 16 people. We are certifying individuals that are in the training, coaching, consulting space that want to train, coach, and consult this work into their world. So we're running license programs. I got 37 licensed certified guides that are training Exactly What to Say programs on a weekly basis. Like, we are fully committed to help people understand how to utilize these words in their real world, regardless of what that real world is. And I know that sometimes, although the message is universal, the messenger needs to change for the message to be well appreciated. So finding the right people to be able to carry into other areas of the world that are not me, helping people understand how to utilize these word choices in leadership roles, helping impact things like diversity, equity, and inclusion is huge, helping impact things like how we show up as parents to our kids. helping leaders understand how to be able to influence complex conversations, helping courtrooms understand how to ask better questions of their witnesses. There's all these crazy areas that we're taking it to, even teaching doctors and nurses how to show up more curious to be able to impact bedside manner moments that could leave scars or help repair relationships when things don't go well in a hospital scenario. So the applications of this work are everywhere, and I'm enjoying the random places it keeps taking me to.
Well, Phil, it's been amazing to have you on, man. I just want to thank you, not only on our behalf, but for our listeners and for everyone whose lives you've impacted, the circles. Man, I can't help but think like this, your works as a whole, it's like the pebble in the pond, man. And I cannot wait to see those ripples have already started, obviously. And so you are, man, an inspiration. And I love your heart for helping people. And so where's the best place for people to learn more about what you're doing? Where do you want to send them? Where do they want to contact you?
There's tons of amazing content on exactlywhattosay.com. We're building out almost a wiki of conversational excellence with contributions of other thought leaders, some bits from myself and some from our certified guide. So stop by the website, exactlywhattosay.com. Also, come find me on social, is at Phil M. Jones UK is where you'll find me on Instagram. On Insta, you get me more so than my team. So if you've got a question, you've got a comment, you've enjoyed the show, then come stop by on Insta, come say hi. Let us know that you joined the conversation here, and love to be able to hear from you and find out what you put into action, what you might be changing or utilizing as a result of today's conversation.
Love it. Love it. Hey, thanks again, Phil, for being on the Life Inner Show.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks again for inviting me.
Dude, that was awesome, man. That guy is super cool. And listen, he does have an unfair advantage. You know what that is, right?
The accent.
It is. But even without the accent, the guy is awesome. I mean, what an power-packed episode, man. Like I'll tell you, when I found out he was coming on the episode, I went back through this book, Exactly What to Say. And dude, I am a highlighter kind of guy. Like I take like a lot of highlighting notes, and like that's how my like Cliff Notes version of books. And I was reminded of how much gold is in here, man. There's some fantastic sayings of things that really, when you understand, and more than that, like it helps you understand like the principle behind it. So like maybe you want to not use those exact words because you just want a little bit of variety, which, by the way, be a little careful with that, because he's worked this out and to work. But you can start to learn how to communicate these patterns for incredible effectiveness, man.
Yeah, and I love what you were sharing at the episode. One of the things that I got big takeaway out of this episode, this whole thing about curiosity.
Yeah, that was good.
Whole idea of being curious, right? And going into conversations of like, I already know everything kind of a thing, right? Being wrong, going to the conversation, I'm not right about everything. Being curious about it can have a tremendous impact in any kind of conversation, right?
Yeah. Huge, man. Like when you're approaching someone from that perspective and you want to genuinely know something about them, about the way they think, about their beliefs, it doesn't come from a place of judgment. It doesn't come from a place of trying to manipulate them. It comes from a place of genuine curiosity. That was awesome when he talked about that, man. I'll tell you, one of my favorite parts is when he talked about like business being a game. Because we think of it as a game too, right? And it's fun. It's really fun. And I love how he talked about like, and it's not a game like where, you lose and you're done. Like you just pick up tomorrow, you pick up in 10 minutes and you try again. And like that finish line, like you can always keep it going, keep the game going. It never has to end. And that's awesome. And dude, the other thing that was my favorite too, is like when he talked about the different levels of winning, dude, and think about how cool that is. Like, so, hey, you know what, and what about this? He mentioned the worst case scenario. What if the worst case scenario, what if you could figure out a way to make that a win? And maybe it's not a huge win, but it's still a win. Like, okay, well, I got some experience. Okay, well, I learned what not to do. Okay, well, this is foundational knowledge I can use for my next attempt. Like you can hack this system because, dude, so many people get stuck without taking action, right? They never launch.
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario to this particular podcast is just me and you listen to it.
That's, dude, but yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe I can make Rusty listen to it. I mean, that's about it.
No, but seriously, when you look at this, and one thing I love when he said this is he gives them a range, right? Yeah. There is a range in those different successes, like 3 different stages of successes. Yeah. And when you start looking from that perspective, worst case scenario, all of a sudden, how crazy is that failure is not so bad, right?
Dude, and I thought of it, like I had this visualization when he was talking about this, like, because you can stack those successes, right? So you have multiple levels of success, so that you can experience multiple wins along that journey. And so I think of like this, like a pinball, man. Like if you ever play pinball, like you hit that one bonus thing and then all these other things light up and then it goes crazy and like this bonus and that bonus 10 times 100, like, and it goes nuts. And like, that's how you can view your business as well. And you can experience so much joy and reward and, positive things from it. Even if you screw up, even if you mess it up. And I said, like you said, you're never going to get it right out of the gate, number one, and you're always going to screw it up, number two. Like it is the way it is. You still got to get it out there. Version 1 is better than version none. Yep.
And one last thing I want to mention about this is for people who have this fear of not being enough, not enough. Like am I doing my business enough? And is it always enough? Right. And those kinds of conversations that are going through their head. Yeah. Guess what? I think what he just shared can not only alleviate that fear, but it can probably eliminate most of it because of the fact that if you start looking for those low successes, then you start looking from the perspective of like what's possible, what I can actually accomplish, what's happening as opposed to what's not happening, how I'm not doing stuff, how I'm failing at this or whatever it might be, right? And the shift in focus has a tremendous difference in that scenario.
Well, and you're building momentum, right? Like, and it's those, maybe you guess what? Maybe you screw up all the time and you're 98% like just crash and burning, but that 2%, you build momentum on that 2% and then it leads to 3% and then 5%. And like your wins get bigger and bigger because as that progresses, you're gaining more and more and more confidence, right? And taking more risk, more failure, which is a good thing. And that flywheel just continues.
Right. And if the worst comes to worst, just have a cool accent. I already got that taken care of. So I don't know what you're going to do, Vojo.
I'm going to come get back to you on that one, man. Yeah, right. The only accent I ever had a chance of developing was from Massachusetts because that's where I was born. And, Pak the Ka is, that's about the best I can do, man.
Oh, what?
Exactly. You think about that and get back to me. All right. Well, listen, we hope you guys love this episode as much as we did. Please subscribe, like, share it. It is the word of mouth that you are our champions here. You guys are the ones that are helping us make a difference in other people's lives. So we're so grateful for that. And every little bit counts. And we appreciate you for tuning in and sharing as well. We will see you next week. Everyone have a wonderful one. Take care.